Welcome to another episode of Business Inspired GY, and today we are with Mrs. Judy Semple Joseph, the Chief Executive Officer of Creditinfo. Ms. Joseph, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Now, Ms. Joseph, we are here today to talk about how integral is the Creditinfo to the development of business in Guyana. So what can you, if you can start by basically telling us what really is the Credit Bureau?
Okay, the Credit Bureau is an entity that was designed to, in short, facilitate access to financing. It was based on research that was done by the World Bank to examine how it can make the process of facilitating access, especially to the unbanked and the SME sector, how they can facilitate that easily and hence easily and more efficiently, and hence the whole Credit Bureau infrastructure was developed. Previously, if you would have been exposed to the banking sector, you know that when a person requests a facility, especially from a business point of view, the bank would have had to do a search to find out what is their full credit worthiness. That included sending letters to other institutions to find out whether they have other facilities outstanding so that they can get a good picture, a total picture of their full indebtedness. What the Credit Bureau actually does is to get that information all in one place so that when a person goes for a facility anywhere, the lender, the loan officer, can tap into a database instantly and get a sense as to what is the full credit worthiness, full credit profile of that individual, and then hence assess their credit worthiness almost instantly. So the Credit Bureau is essentially works from a digital platform that allows lenders to upload their data to that central database so that whenever a credit decision is needed to be made, they can have access to that database as well. So it's a reciprocal arrangement between the lenders and the Credit Bureau. They provide data and they have access to data to make their credit decision, and all of this is enshrined in law, the credit reporting legislation.
Now, you're celebrating 8 years this year operating in Guyana. How responsive has been Guyanese to this particular service?
That's a difficult question, but I think if I'm to say with confidence, it has been mixed. Mixed in the sense that a lot of people still do not yet know or have not taken the time to pay attention or to pay sufficient attention until they are faced with the need to have a loan. On the other hand, we see the lenders really utilizing the service, looking forward to making their own credit decisions more effective, and in that sense we see improvement in the number of facilities being granted, the rate at which it is being granted, the time frame for delivery of those decisions. So we're seeing lenders offering same-day approvals, a lot more promotions for different purposes, even in some cases 1 hour approvals. So from the lender's point of view, they're utilizing and they're seeing the benefits from it. Consumers, on the other hand, are becoming more and more interested. All is not lost, but of course there's still room for improvement where persons need to, we believe, pay attention to how knowing their credit profile can really facilitate the improvement in their own livelihoods in a general sense.
Earlier you said that the Credit Bureau was created so that small and medium-sized enterprises and so on can access loan facilities. Have you been seeing a lot of owners of small and medium-sized businesses coming to have their credit checks done to see if they're credit worthy before going to financial institutions?
I don't think so in the wave that we expected, no. Except for some engagements we would have had with the Small Business Bureau, and then they come to know before they go. We've been advocating know before you go for the last few years, meaning that do not wait until you have a situation where you need financing, then you go to a bank and then they pull up your credit report and their questions. We're saying empower yourself. The law provides for everyone, every data subject, you and I, everyone, we're data subjects in the legislation. We can have access, we can request our credit report. The law provides for us to have one free credit report every year. Pull that credit report, see what it says, so that when you go to negotiate financing with a lending institution, you can go with confidence because you know what they will see when they pull your credit report. So know beforehand. And I think this is something that we certainly would want the support of the media and other entities that collaborate with us to essentially help to spread the message that on knowing before it's going to be a benefit for all. The individuals will become more confident, they will be taking the right decisions, ensuring that their credit profiles are as good as possible. And in that way, they could also negotiate more effectively with the lenders. Lenders will have a better credit portfolio in the long run, and the cycle, in a simplistic way, will be enhanced, and the market is likely to grow.
How, if I can, based on what you would have just said, how integral do you think is the credit bureau to the development of especially small and medium-sized businesses in Guyana?
Absolutely critical, because historically one of the major issues that has been determined to be negatively impacting on the growth of small businesses is the access to finance. And this is precisely why a credit bureau was established, to facilitate that ease of access. So historically, you go to a bank as a small entity, you need to provide your financial information, you need to show 3 years of financial data to prove that you have been doing business, other records to prove that you have been in business. With a credit profile in the credit bureau database, once you would have been effectively managing your facility, you will have a record, and that record in the credit bureau database offers reputational collateral. Because one of the other issues affecting small businesses from getting credit, the credit that they deserve, and we hear the lament all the time, they don't have sufficient collateral. So in that sense, a good credit score and a good credit profile offers reputational collateral, your integrity, because it's in essence covering the 5 C's of credit, more or less. The other aspect of it is that if for a small business, you may not have, a lot of small people may not have borrowings in the formal financial sector. But with a credit bureau, they can still have a credit profile that can also speak to reputational collateral. How can this happen? They may have a utility bill that shows good, reasonable, on-time payments that gives a good score. That can be used because in our credit bureau data, we have a finance score and a non-finance score. So for those individuals that may not have borrowed from the formal financial sector, there are other data sources in our database that could also provide a credit profile and a credit score, like utility data, and therefore, in that sense, a credit profile could also be developed for those smaller business persons who may not be borrowing from the financial sector.
We are still trying to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And I know in Guyana we have seen a lot of small businesses being opened. Have you seen an increase of credit checks coming in from financial institutions?
Absolutely. We have seen over the years it has increased significantly, but I can tell you in the last quarter of 2020 there was a massive explosion, which is where I think, and even from the end of the last quarter in 2020 and most of the first quarter of 2021, and I think that is where the indication of new businesses being opened, a lot of new credit checks being undertaken. There was some part of us slacking off recently, but I mean in that 6-month period between September and March of September 2020, March 2021, yes, there has been a significant increase. But in general, over the years since we would have started this, there has been an increasing trend over the last 7, 8 years.
What would you say has been the Credit Bureau's most significant achievement since operating in the Guyanese market?
There are lots of little things. Accomplishments for us, it's the legislation that is in place that allows us to operate in the first place. For us, in terms of our own efforts, the fact that we were able, even prior to COVID-19, to create a facility where people can access their credit reports online. Because as I mentioned earlier, the law provides for every data subject to have access to a free credit report every year. And we wanted to improve our efficiency internally to make sure that people have access to the credit reports whenever they want, and to make that facility seamless. And then came COVID. And then we realized that we needed to really make this a thing. So there was a time in the early stages of COVID, we were able to shut down the office and work from home, and still provide the service online via our website. So I think in terms of significant achievements, that would have been one of the key things, where we have now an online platform for people to access their credit report. There is also some other significant internal developments in terms of our subscribers, which would be the lenders, in terms of the tools that we provide. So we are not just a credit bureau. We are now a full credit risk solutions entity, meaning that having established the initial credit reporting services by offering credit reports, having had at least 5 years of solid data in our database, we are now able to provide market data that establishes the trends in what has been happening in Guyana's credit industry. So the analytics for us now really speak to what are the gaps, what are the opportunities, what could be some projections for the industry, for the credit industry in Guyana. And we are now in the process of encouraging lenders to really look in a holistic way at what this data is telling us and how it can be used to even expand the industry or even their own portfolios within their own businesses. The solutions that we are offering, of course, are all web-based digital solutions. So from the comfort of their own businesses, they can have access to these analytics. And I can tell you some of what we've been seeing, for example, and eventually we can share some more concrete stats. But one of the things the trends we've observed in the data is that women are better payers, less delinquency among women borrowers. That's one of the significant things that we like to boast, given that most of us are women in the office. And but however, women get smaller, on average, smaller loans, right? And in that sense, it's like ridiculous. So, but they're better payers. There are some other insights that are cause for concern that speak to specific entities, which I would not share now, but we point those out, as necessary. But the good thing about it is that our lenders who are utilizing these services can see for themselves how they need to improve, what other decisions they need to take so that their portfolios can be improved.
I know you, one of the questions that I want to ask you was about the gender balance when it comes to which gender you were being asked to run a credit check on most. And I bring it up as a follow-up question based on what you said, that women were better payers in terms of when they access financing. So who are women being evaluated more when it comes to access to loans?
But I don't know. I wouldn't want to say there's a bias in that, where that is concerned, because the law requires that for every facility, a credit report must be pulled, regardless of gender. So there's no bias where that is concerned. It's strictly based on the legislation that says for every facility, for every loan that is being granted, a credit report must be pulled. The evaluation, however, is based on the specific lending agency.
Okay. What would be your advice for persons either starting small businesses or owners of small businesses seeking to access financial support?
The first thing, and I keep saying all the time, check your credit report. Know what is there about you, what is in the credit bureau database. If you don't know, you're likely to be surprised when you go in front of a lender for requesting a facility. Know before you go. Know what your score is. Know what your profile is. And when I say know what your profile is, the credit report gives reasons for whatever information is contained therein. And once you know, you can take action. Once it is a good score, you can go with confidence to your lender. Once it is not so good a score, then with the reasons given, you can take action to have it adjusted. And the good thing is that your credit report and score is dynamic. The way you operate, the way you pay back, how you behave in terms of your lending activities, that is what is going to be reflected. So it can change over time. It can go up, it can go down, depending on your circumstances and what is happening. So the first thing is know before you go. Know what is in the credit bureau database. That's the first thing. And take the necessary actions for that. In terms of other things, other things that you can put in place as a small business person, of course, it's just ensure that you still need to have records. There's no running away from the fact that you need documentation of your records. Now, in the time of COVID, there is this recommendation from a number of sources that small businesses need to pivot to becoming more resilient, and move towards a more digital approach, get a better understanding of how to build more resilient and sustainable businesses by applying technology to their processes. Not too sure if there's any mechanism to really help, across the board on this. I know there might be individual pockets of efforts, across the board, but not in a holistic way. So we have to just think differently now, and to utilize all avenues that can really help to take us to the next level. Because I think I am seeing this whole situation and this whole period as one for, taking off to the next level. and it's setting the basis for a new level of business, a new type of business, a new way of doing business. And I think this is where small business persons need to be channeled, to be coached, to be, to just be encouraged to take advantage. But from our point of view, especially in terms of accessing financing, is knowing what your current status is and taking the necessary actions, to get to the next stage of your business.
Ms. Joseph, thank you very much for speaking with us.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
I know that the information you would have provided today would be helpful to our viewers and listeners.
Okay, I hope so. Thank you again.